This video is brought to you by BoardGamePrices.com. Find the best prices for board games at BoardGamePrices.com. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to my Shelf of Shame update for July 2019. Apologies for my voice in this video if it's a little bit weird. I've had the flu for the last 2 weeks and my voice is just coming back, so bear with me on this one. Now, I've been doing a series of videos on why I got rid of games, and one of the things that popped up in the most recent video was that I actually have a Shelf of Shame now. Now, previously I prided myself on never having more than 5 games or so that have been unplayed at any given time. It's ballooned up to about 25 at the moment. So part of the reason I'm doing this video is to sort of highlight how quickly a collection can get out of control, but also to showcase some of the games that I might have coming up, and to also kind of force myself into playing these games, because if I report on these publicly, and in 6 months from now they're still unplayed, I'm going to feel really crappy about that. So, here we go. My current Shelf of Shame. Now let's start with the most complicated game on my Shelf of Shame, and I'm not talking about game complexity, I'm talking about moral complexity. So if you don't know me very well, you might not know that I'm not a big fan of games about colonialism, and Endeavour is about colonialism. You also know I'm from New Zealand, and the game designer is from New Zealand, so I really want to play games made by New Zealand designers. This game also has slavery in it, and I'm not very fond of games with slavery in it. But the designer's also someone I've known for 20 years. Jarrett, he's a friend of mine. We met through role-playing games. So I'm really conflicted on this one. I want to give it a go. The subject matter really isn't my cup of tea, but the designer's a good friend. It's a New Zealand-made game, and I really should give it at least one go over. Next we have the mechanically most complex game in this set, and that's Gaia Project. Now this is a review copy I got from Z-Man Games. I got like 4 games from them at the same time, so I have been working through those. The barrier of Gaia Project is that it's a pretty damn hard game to learn. I've punched it out, I've looked at it, I've read the rules, and I'm still not 100% sure how to play it. Fortunately, Sam MacDonald from Garfield Games knows this game, so he's going to come around and teach it to me at some point in the future. Then we have Gizmos, a game I picked up solely because of how it looks. Like, my partner and I really like Potion Explosion. I saw this in the store, and it was an impulse purchase. This one's only been with me for a couple of weeks. I got it just before I got sick. And yeah, 100% picked up because of the whole marbles dropping out of the feeder mechanism, which I found really fun in Potion Explosion. And we have Whistle Stop, my very first train game. Yeah, I don't actually own train games. I don't own 18xx's, and I don't own Ticket to Ride, so this is like my only trade game. I picked this one up in a math trade at the start of the year and still haven't got to it. It looks really neat too. Then we have all of the expansion stuff for Lords of Hellas. Now, I've played the core game of Lords of Hellas plenty of times, but all of the expansion material came in very recently, and there is a heck of a lot of stuff in there. A whole bunch of variant ways to play, extra maps, extra stuff, and it just hasn't hit the table again yet. This has only been here for about 3 or 4 weeks, so I don't feel too bad about that yet. And the same story is true for Mansions of Madness. I've actually played 13 of the 19 available scenarios, but I just got the most recent expansion pack for it, so there's about 3 or 4 scenarios there I haven't played, at least 1 or 2 from Streets of Arkham I haven't got to yet as well. Next up is Viticulture, which is actually a loaned game to me, so this is being lent to me by a friend of mine, who not only wants me to learn the game and teach him how to play, but also probably wants me to cover it on the channel. And this one's done quite well in a recent poll, so probably will end up on the channel in the next month or so. I've heard a lot of good things about Viticulture, I've read the rules, it looks like a pretty good game, so it's just a matter of time before we get this on the table. Then we have the Big Box of Lancaster. Now, I have played the original Lancaster game at a friend's place. It was about 2 or 3 years ago, and I thought it was a pretty good game, and this is one I picked up in a math trade at the start of the year. So when I talk about getting rid of games, quite frequently I trade them. I'll either trade them directly with someone, or I'll trade them via a math trade. If you want to know more about math trades, there's plenty of information online, but the core of them is you put up games you're willing to get rid of, rank games you want to get for them, and you end up trading in a big circle. So you might send a game away to someone else, but collect a different game from a third party, and it just goes in a big circle, so everyone gets a game that they want. I kind of didn't realize how big the Big Box of Lancaster is, so this is one that's probably going to get reviewed, get a couple of plays, and I'll probably end up flicking this on unless all the extra content in the big box turns out to be awesome. Charterstone. Now, I got Charterstone for 40 New Zealand dollars. It's actually a previously played version with the recharge pack included. So one side of the map is totally covered, but it was 40 NZ dollars, which is 20 US, and it came with the deluxe resources as well, which I'm going to use for side. The biggest problem with a game like Charterstone is tying everyone down for a whole bunch of weeks in order to play one specific game. I also didn't think about this when I only got one side of the board, because doing a review of the game would be quite tricky without showing spoilers and other bits and pieces. So you'd have to play it through a fair bit in order to judge it for a review, but then you have to show the board, and one side of the board's already covered. So I don't know if this one's going to end up on the channel anytime soon. Near and Far. Now this is one of my big shames. I picked this up secondhand, Kickstarter edition, and I also backed the Amber Mines expansion for it. And I held off playing it until the Amber Mines came in, because I thought, oh, just got a second-hand copy. The Kickstarter's just starting. I'll give it all a go when it comes out. And again, this ties into that whole getting a campaign together, because I actually wanted to play the whole damn thing. But now I'm thinking maybe I should just look at the solo rules, look at the two-player co-op rules, and maybe just play a couple of the scenarios just to get a feel for it, instead of holding back, waiting for that ideal moment when we'll have like 10 weeks to be able to play the whole thing all the way through. Then we have Tiny Epic Galaxies and its expansion. Now, I've played Tiny Epic Galaxies solo, but I have not played it with a group yet. I've heard a lot of praise about it online, which is why I picked it up, but the solo mode didn't really do it for me, so I'm going to be interested to see how this plays with a group. And yeah, I did end up getting the expansion at the same time because they were both on sale. Next we have Welcome to Dinoworld, which is a review copy that's been sent to me recently. I got this just before I got sick. I have unboxed it, I've had a look at it, but I haven't got around to playing it yet. This is one that's probably going to end up on the channel in the next month or two, and roll and write should be pretty easy to get a group together and play and test. I don't think it's going to be too arduous to do this one. My partner's also a big fan of Jurassic Park, so it should be pretty easy to convince her to play. Now, this is Defenders of the Last Stand, a game that I mentioned on my Hidden Gems list. The reason it's here is I got all the Kickstarter expansion material for it, which is a whole bunch of extra characters, so I'd like to thank the people who, when I mentioned Defenders of the Last Stand, said that it was available online at an American store. So I actually tracked that down, ordered the extra parts from the US, and got them sent through a remailer here. And it was actually quite surprisingly cheap. So I'm really looking at giving that another go as well, with the extra characters and the extra encounters. Next up is Vengeance, a game I traded with a friend of mine for another game. I've opened up Vengeance and I've had a good look at it, and I've sort of played through a couple of turns but not played a full game, and it's an odd one. It looks like it's a really neat, if overproduced, solo game, but I'm not entirely sure how well it's going to play multiplayer. So interested to give that one a go with a group of people to see how it works. But it looks like it could end up being one of those games that I play solo for a while until I'm done with it, and then it finds a new home. Next we have Hannibal, Rome vs. Carthage, which is a game that's been recommended to me an awful lot because I like games like Twilight Struggle, Paths of Glory, those GMT type card-driven war games. And a lot of people have said that Hannibal is a top-notch, absolute classic game, so I'm really keen to give this one a go. But, like a lot of those games, like Paths of Glory, this has a bit of a learning curve, and you've also got to find someone who wants to spend a whole afternoon playing a head-to-head game with you. Still, I got the cheapest chips off a second-hand table, so I don't mind if I don't get to this one anytime soon. Next we have Quantum, which is a game I played once ages ago. I picked this one up in a math trade at the start of the year as well. It's another one I want to get to just because of its unique take on dice mechanics, and because it's just a little different. It's quite a novel, unique game. I'm really glad to have this in the collection, even if I haven't got to play it yet. The same is true for Abyss. This is another game that I've played someone else's copy, and I got this one retail just because I wanted to add it to the collection. It's a really respectable, solid game. I've only played it the once at a friend's place a couple of years ago. It's definitely one of those games that after playing it, I thought, yeah, I want to have this one in my collection. I'd like to get my copy on the table and teach my friends how to play it, but again, I don't feel an overwhelming need to get that one done immediately. We have Renegade. Now, I've opened up Renegade, I've read the rules, I've set it up a couple of times, and I'll be damned if I can figure out how the game works. It's one I feel I need to go online, watch some tutorials. There's something about how the rulebook's structured that just has bounced off me. I know it's just basically a deck builder, and that shouldn't be that complex, but there's something about the use of language in it and how it's structured that just bounced off me. Maybe I was tired when I tried giving it a go the first time, but yeah, I picked it up, had a good look at it, and it's just left me a bit baffled. So that's one I want to get to because I hear so many good things about it. I hear that it's one of the best cooperative deck builders out there, and one of the best solo deck builders as well. So definitely one I want to get on top of when I've got the brain space to get on top of it. So here's the Artemis Project, which arrived while I was sick, so I didn't actually unbox that for a week. They actually sent me 2 copies because I got a review copy sent to me and the one that I paid as a backer. So I took one of the copies and donated it to our local board game cafe. if you're in Wellington, New Zealand and want to check out the Artemis Project, Counterculture has a copy of it. This looks like a really cool game. I backed it because of the exposure mechanic in the game, which is, it's got dice placement, but there's, say, a limited pool of resources, and the lower value dice get to pick the resources first. So you can risk it by putting in a high value dice, but there's a good chance that all the goodies will be gone by the time your dice activates. And I think that's just a neat, different idea for dice placement. Also quite like the theme. Anything sci-fi colonization, I'm fine with. It's real world colonization where I get a bit squicky. This is Copenhagen. It's a tile placement game where you're building the fronts of houses with different colored tiles, which I assume is something that happens in Copenhagen. This one's been loaned to me by a friend who wanted me to figure out the game for him. This happens a fair bit. People lend me games because they want me to teach them how to play them. It's also quite good because a lot of those end up on the channel. As you might notice, not a lot of these games are actually review copies. Most of them are either ones I've purchased or traded or got from friends. And that's a large amount of the games that come through the channel are just ones that have been given to me by friends. So this game looks okay. It doesn't look like it's going to set my world on fire. The theme's kind of a bit meh. But I'm curious to give it a go and see how it plays. I thought the same thing about Azul. I thought that looked kind of dull and didn't have much theme, but turned out I absolutely loved that game. So hopefully Copenhagen's got a bit of that going on. Then we have The Walking Dead No Sanctuary. I picked this one up off Shem Phillips secondhand for a pretty reasonable price, and that's just been sitting up on the shelf taking up a lot of space. Mainly got it because I haven't played any of the Sadler Brothers games, and I was curious to give one a go. Plus, I'm actually quite a fan of The Walking Dead up to about mid-season 6. I think if they'd stopped the show mid-season 6, it'd be one of the classics in modern television history. But yeah, really enjoyed the show. I like the IP, so I thought I'd give the game a go. It looks like it's got some interesting stuff in it with how the interaction between the players works, but it's one that reading the rules really won't tell you the story of it. Next we have Alien Frontiers, which is apparently a classic game that everyone kind of owns, but I've never played. I saw how many people own it on Board Game Geek, and I was kind of like, why have I never heard of this game? And I looked at it, and it's sort of dice placement-y game, and I was like, okay, we'll pick it up. This is the Stations expansion for Leaving Earth. Now, Leaving Earth's one of my favorite new games to me for the last year or so. The Stations expansion just came in about a week ago, and I haven't honestly really looked at it yet. I know there's a lot of cool content in there, there's a lot to dig into, but just because of being sick, just haven't even really looked at it. What really blew me away though is that box is absolutely chock-a-block. Like, there's no air in that box. Also now I have to figure out a way to store Leaving Earth, Outer Planets, and Stations in some other box because the boxes you get from the distributor aren't very good. The same day I got The Walking Dead from Shem, I also got Tiny Epic Zombies off him as well. And I mostly got this because it looked tinky, like meeples holding chainsaws. I've set this one up and had a look at it. It's actually a bit more complex than I was expecting, so it's a game I actually think I have to sit down and seriously work through to figure out how to play it, because my first impressions on just opening up the box, reading the rules and setting it up was that it's a bit cumbersome for what it should be. That might just be me. And we got Total Monstrosities, which is a game you will probably not have heard of. It's a Kickstarter game that's coming out shortly. I think 1 August is when they're kicking off. And this is a Bear and Pretzels push your luck party game type thing, where you're summoning your Total Mon, you're applying buffs and boosts to them, and the person with the highest score gets to keep all of the Total Mon that were bid on that round, and the winner at the end of the game is the person who gets to 10 points first. So it's just really fast-paced, light and silly game. And yeah, I'm doing a preview of this for the channel, so I've got to give it a few more plays. And finally we have Project Dreamscape, which is from Sarah and Will Reed, who designed Oaxaca. And there's a wonderful story behind why I have this game, and this is one of their older games, and they only had a handful of copies left, and they weren't really selling any more of them. And because of my Hidden Gems video mentioning Oaxaca, they thought that because I appreciated Oaxaca being a small box game, that I might like one of their old games, and that they just wanted it to go to someone who appreciated that type of game. So that was a really nice thought. So shout out to Sarah and Will for sending me that. It's really nice, but I still haven't actually got to it yet. So hopefully this pile of games here is as big as the Shelf of Shame gets. I really want to get on top of this. Which of these games do you reckon I should crack into first? Which ones do you think I should probably skip and just put on the trade block? Normal service should hopefully return next week when my voice is a little bit better. And until then, if you enjoyed this video, like it, subscribe to the channel, and check out our Patreon.